A good sign of a healthy ecosystem is looking at the life that thrives around it. In the Fediverse, there's a great user base and platforms to choose from, but what about the apps developers build around? Today, we'll be talking to Bart Decrem, the co-founder of Mammoth, a Mastodon app for iOS, about what it's like to build for the Fediverse and how we can join Mastodon more easily. Today we're talking to Bart Decrem, the co-creator of Mammoth, an iOS app that lets you browse Mastodon. Bart, how are you doing today?
Doing great. A little bit of allergy, but it's a good time of the year.
We are going to be asking you about Mammoth and the Fediverse in general. Let's start off. What is Mammoth?
It's a user-friendly Mastodon client. So we looked at Mastodon and was like, this is great. This is what social networking should be. But it can be complicated. The Fediverse decentralization has a way of making user experiences kind of complicated. So we're like, can we help make this safe for humans? Can we make it user-friendly? So that's what we've been doing for the last year.
What you've done looks like you've streamlined importing new users, which is the thing that most people complain about when joining Mastodon. Can you tell us about how you made onboarding easier and why that's important?
The biggest problem with Mastodon would be you hear about Mastodon, you download an app, and then it goes log into your instance, and you go like, well, what's that? That's just a weird concept that nobody's ever heard of, right? So how do we get people through that hurdle to get an account? And then the next thing that would happen on Mastodon is an empty screen. You know, you would have set up an account, and then it would be like following feed, and then there'd be nothing. And so we were like, well, what is the correct way to onboard users? And we're like, well, the correct way to onboard users is to make some suggestions of interesting people and conversations to follow. And so we spent like a year really thinking through what is the right way to do that that's aligned with sort of the values of the Fediverse.
You do a great job with that onboarding. Like you said, the instances is a big hang up for people. And y'all just say, hey, here's one instance you can join, here's a bunch more, and you make that super easy. My experience of using Mammoth also was that next page, it was really well curated list of things that felt directed to me, but you're not scraping any data. You're doing everything pretty ethical, which fits in the Fediverse. Well, let's talk a little bit about what is the Fediverse. How do you describe this to new users?
You and I, we both came here for the original promise of the internet, which is anybody can set up a website, you can go anywhere in the world, you can meet people, you can discover your community, your tribe, wherever it is. And that's the magic of the internet circa 1990, right? When it first got started. And so you end up with a model where people build blogs and websites, and then they start meeting friends and connecting with them, and it's all sort of disparate. And it's the original superpower of the internet. It's decentralized. Nobody controls it. There's a protocol underneath it called TCP/IP, and anybody can build up a thing, and you can find anything and connect with anything. What happened over the years is that people go, well, we can make that more user-friendly and we can make that easier. And especially as the iPhone comes into play, you start having these walled gardens. And so one big one is Apple, another big one is Google, another big one is Twitter and Facebook and so on. And so what they do is they say, we're going to get you going in 4 seconds. Just download the app, give me access to your address book, and I'm going to tell you all of your friends that are already here, and you're up and running. And that's great because it delivers a really good user experience. But what you end up doing is you end up shutting out, and little by little, the internet starts looking more like AOL. It's a walled garden. It's a shopping mall. You're at the mall, and the mall is great and safe and convenient, but there's a big wall around it. These giant tech companies have slurped up all the market share, have slurped up all the attention, and they deliver addictive user experiences, and some of those are great, and some of those are just addictive, and they have massive adoption, and social systems have a big network effect. The more people there are, the more valuable it is, right? So you get entrenched market power. And so over the last 10 years, we've sort of lost our way, and we've gone farther and farther away from the original promise of the internet, which is nobody controls it, anybody can set up their own spot, and then anybody can go anywhere. And so we've lost sight of that. And the Fediverse, at its core, it's going back to that original promise. Can we go back to the original promise of the internet that anybody can set up their homestead, their own place, can own their own piece of real estate on the internet, can connect with whoever they want to, but can we learn from the last 20 years, and can we learn some new tricks? And so as we do that, and anybody can set up an app or a website or a service, can we make it so that there's a social frame that comes with that, so that You don't have to start completely from scratch when you build your website. The login, the connections, the social engagement metrics, they can go along with that. So the Fediverse is an attempt to go back to the promise of the internet of nobody controls it. Anybody can find their tribe and express themselves and go wherever they want to go. Let's go back to that and away from the model of walled off gardens by 5 or 6 or 7 companies. And so as we think about the open internet, what are the building blocks? What are the foundations of that? Well, there's the email protocols, SMTP and IMAP and all that, right? And another important open protocol is RSS, and podcasts are built on it, and newsreaders used to be built on that. And so when you have these protocols that are open standards, then people can go build on that, and then anybody can build user experiences, whether that be an app like Mammoth or a destination website or whatever it is. And so the way I think of the Fediverse is, these are our cousins, man. It's like RSS and podcasts and email and SMTP. That's the world that we live in. And so can we go rebuild the social web on those foundations of open protocols that include email protocols and RSS, very much so, but add these social protocols from ActivityPub.
I want to hear more about what you are going to work on next. I know the Mammoth is the first project, and you seem very excited about the Fediverse. Yep. What else are you working on?
Well, Mastodon has been the killer app for the Fediverse. It's been the killer app for ActivityPub, and it still is. And so we thought the biggest problem with Mastodon is making it approachable to newcomers, right? And so we're going to keep doing that. But the really cool thing that's going on right now is that there's these other things blossoming on the Fediverse. Automatic with WordPress has some really cool projects going on. Flipboard is on the Fediverse. There's a newsletter platform called Ghost. Meta has joined with their Twitter alternative, which is Threads, and they have 130 million people there. Those 130 million people, well, the ones in the US, which I think is about half, are now federated. So if you're on Threads, you're part of the Fediverse, or you can go to your settings and just flip one button and you're part of the Fediverse. And so what's going on this year that's super exciting is that we're going from just an alternative to the 3 or 4 big social media companies to an alternative to the web that's taking shape. And so what I think is very exciting is that broadening of the space. And that's the Fediverse. So this year, we're in conversations with other people that are building here and saying, what do we need to do to get 1 million websites on the Fediverse? What do we need to do to get 100 million people on Mastodon or on WordPress or on Ghost or whatever the other, or on Flipboard, whatever the other apps are on the Fediverse? What are the core building blocks that are yet to be built? Do we need a login system that's unified? How do you bring money into the Fediverse so that you can have creators earn money? Is it microtransactions? Does it look like newsletter subscriptions and all of that? So there's a lot of work to be done to lay the foundations for a Fediverse with 100 million people on it and then 1 billion people on it. I think we're going to get there because people want an alternative. People want a place where it's real people and it's real publishers, and the AI stuff, it's cool, but what about the web that we came here for 20 years ago? And so that's the opportunity. So this year, we're going to launch a major new initiative that's more about ActivityPub and the Fediverse going beyond Mastodon.
I think it's super important. If we get this critical mass, I think companies no longer will be able to trap us in our walled gardens. We made a mistake somewhere 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, and this is our chance. It's like we're rewinding time. I seriously feel like some DeLorean's going to come out, like hop in. We're fixing the internet, and that's our chance to do it right now.
Yeah, it's about the network effect. It's about social discovery. These words are all sort of complicated and super nerdy, right? And sort of tech bro Silicon Valley, but discoverability is, hey, I've got a newsletter and I want people to read my newsletter and subscribe to it and hopefully pay for it so I can make a living, right? That's how you end up with a healthy media ecosystem and creator economy. And so what you need is you need to be able to find your stuff. We found ourselves in a world with walled gardens because Twitter and Facebook and TikTok is like, we'll take care of all that. You make a good video and we'll get 100 million people to watch it. The only problem is now you're stuck in our platform and we capture all the upside and we extract all the value from that, right? And so the great thing with ActivityPub, we're like, how can we develop a system that lets you create content and people enjoy that content and the content be found? How do we make it so that you, Doc, can find a really great blog post or creator or website and then tell me about it and I find out about it and make that fun, user-friendly, and competitive? Like, can we create a world where The Verge and this is one of the companies that's actually working on this. They have a news site, and historically, news sites like The Verge have been really dependent on Google and Facebook and Twitter for their distribution, and then that doesn't end well because they end up extracting all the value and taking it away from you, right? So a site like The Verge is like, hey, we need people to come to our website, and then we're going to have a full experience there, and we want people to come back, and we want people to leave comments. But what if I'm reading a story on The Verge and I leave a comment, and then the people that follow me on Mastodon can read that within their Mastodon app? Now we're letting you find out about stuff that I've discovered, and I can make recommendations for you for stuff to read, and that's the alternative to the walled gardens that we're building here.
And on that note, Bart, how can people find out more about Mammoth?
Oh, we're on the App Store. You just search for Mammoth, and we're on the web at getmammoth.app.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bart, for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Fediverse Files. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments below. And if you go through the Mammoth setup process, let us know how your experience was. Who did it recommend? Did it recommend DocPop? I hope it recommended DocPop. If not, I'm going to file a bug report.
If not, we'll talk. Thank you.
Thanks for watching.